Can we both do that? All right. It looks like we are live. Hello. Welcome to the Difference Makers live podcast. Today I have personal injury attorney Brian Calandra with us. He is our senior partner. We're just going to let people come in. We're going to, allow a few moments for them to come in. But today is a Q&A, and I just wanted to introduce you. Thank you, Brian, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here, of course.
Yeah.
This should be fun.
Oh, yeah. No, it'll definitely be fun. We might ask you some fun questions, some serious questions, but hopefully it'll help our audience understand kind of what we do, how we help people, and some fun things maybe.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
The more fun, the better. Let's stay away from the serious
I
stuff.
know. I like to keep it fun and lighthearted here. Now, I know we're trying to get onto our Instagram live here, so we're just going to let people kind of get in as well. But while people are coming in, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, you are an attorney, right? So
I am.
How about we start with what made you want to be an attorney?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
And there are some folks watching this, I think, back home that might be chuckling, but I always had a big mouth. Always liked to get into arguments when I was younger. And I heard that a lot. You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer. And was on my debate team in school. And it was just kind of a natural path for me. I love working with people as well. I grew up in a family catering business, started real young in that, in the service industry. So most of my family are restaurant people. But I think I was just born to be a lawyer.
Yeah. So does that mean that you're a good cook?
Well, again, that might depend on who you ask. But if you're looking for good Italian food, you could probably do a lot worse.
Yeah? Really? So what's your favorite dish to cook then, real quick?
Well, I'm a soup fanatic.
Really?
Yeah, I like it boiling hot. But I make a lot of different kinds of soups. And
wow.
And my daughter's a spaghetti eating machine, so we eat a lot of pasta and sauce at the house.
Oh, that sounds good. So I just moved here, and my husband and I have been exploring different places. And I'd have to look it up, but there's this place in Lone Tree that has amazing Italian food. We get the lasagna all the time. It's great. And I'm the one off person that might like the chicken Alfredo. And I tried their chicken Alfredo, fettuccine Alfredo, and I didn't like it because it was too authentic. So I think I like a whitewashed pasta, if we're being honest here. But I have a good time. So like I was saying, welcome to the podcast. If you're just joining in, I see we have some people hopping in. If you do have any questions for personal injury attorney Brian Calandra, go ahead and leave them. He can answer your legal questions, so go ahead and leave them. But while we're just letting people in, we're just going to ask you some simple questions, okay? So, what kind of law do we practice at Ramos Law?
Well, that's a great question, obviously. So Dr. Ramos founded this firm, and most of you watching hopefully know that Dr. Ramos is a board-certified ER physician as well as an attorney, right? Super rare type of person, very qualified, very educated, and has a lot of expertise, obviously, in the medical area, and he teaches that to our team. And so first and foremost, we're a personal injury firm. What does that mean? So we handle a lot of claims involving car accidents, people getting injured on dangerous properties, people being bit by dogs, other types of kind of guard injury claims. But the firm has been growing, and I've been working with Dr. Ramos for over 12 years now. And in that time, we've expanded. So Dr. Ramos, in addition to being a doctor, in addition to being a lawyer and a black belt, and God knows what else he is, he's also a pilot. And one of his big passions is flying. And so we started an aviation division here in the firm with attorney Joe LaRusso, also a very good pilot. And they handle all kinds of things involving aviation, helping pilots their licenses. We handle crashes, those types of things. We also have a workers' compensation division where we help folks that have been injured at work. And we have another new division in the firm, a consumer protection division, led by Matt Osborne, a fantastic attorney that was recently given an award here in Colorado for being an outstanding consumer protection lawyer. We help people that are being harassed by credit agencies or being mistreated by their banks or ripped off at a car dealership. It's pretty broad in scope, but those are the main areas of the firm. But if anyone calls here looking for help, we also have a network of attorneys outside of our firm that basically will handle just about any kind of legal problem that you're having. And we try to make sure that whoever calls us, if we can, we do our best to give them help outside.
Right. I feel like it's, very unusual, right? Some people say it's unusual for law firms to refer to another law firm, right? And so that makes us a little special in a sort of way, right? We also have a medical team. So, can you maybe tell us a little bit about that team?
Sure. No, I think that's an important question. So,
Mhm.
so one of the things that sets our firm apart, I think, from other injury firms that are out there is not just Dr. Ramos and his medical expertise, but our medical team that he created along with Dr. Hoven, who's also a chiropractor. And so our medical team, independent, but works in conjunction with our legal team to make sure that all of our clients are getting the best access to medical care with the right people at the right time. And because our firm is built on medical DNA, if you kind of phrase,
Mhm.
and because of Dr. Ramos, the medical world that's out there likes to work with us because of that, right? Because of that medical background. And well, let's face it, a lot of medical folks hate lawyers. And lucky for us, we have Dr. Ramos here to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like you were saying, he is a unique breed, right? He is the medical doctor and attorney, and a lot of people ask us when they call in, they say, "Is he really an attorney or is he really a medical doctor?" Some people don't think he actually practiced, and so, while working with him, I've learned a lot about all the years that he spent in the medical field, actually, up to 15 years, right? And so like you're saying, he is a unique breed, right? He's
Mhm.
dedicated to providing help to people in any way possible, and, I think it's great to see that, right?
No, absolutely. Dr. Ramos grew up in a small town.
Mhm.
I might get this wrong, Dr. Ramos, but I think the nearest hospital was around 150 miles away. He's the
Right.
oldest of 10 children. And, and growing up, something that was very important to him and his family was just being able to get access to medical care, which was sometimes a challenge. And one of the reasons Dr. Ramos chose emergency medicine, and I remember him telling me about this many years ago, is because when you go to the emergency room, the doctors there, they're not performing what Dr. Ramos used to call a wallet biopsy, meaning you come into Dr. Ramos's ER, you need a CT scan, you're going to get a CT scan. You're going to get the proper care and the proper treatment, regardless of whether you have health insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever funds you have. You're going to get the right care and make sure that you're taken care of.
Right. He has told me a lot about the bowel biopsy, and I never really thought about it much, but it makes sense, and it does align with his values from what so I think he does a great job, at that. But moving forward, I just wanna say something real quick. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I see we have Julian did bring up a question, so let me bring this up. If you wanna go ahead and see that. Can you see that?
I
Right?
can. So the okay, if I was a passenger, what are my options for seeking compensation for my injuries? Okay, so that's a really good question. And it can be nuanced and detailed. But the first thing that you want to do if you're injured in a car crash is give us a call here at Ramos Law so that we can give you a consultation, go through some of the details, and make sure you're getting the right advice before you get on the phone with any insurance companies.
Yeah.
Because trust us when we tell you, they're not there. That's been our experience over the years. And so, but there are a lot of questions that need to be asked with regard to what's being asked here, right? For example, well, did the car that hit you have car insurance? Unfortunately, sometimes people don't pay their insurance bill, they don't get car insurance, they don't have insurance. Then the question becomes, well, what kind of insurance do you have for your car? Do you have something called uninsured motorist coverage, which covers you
Mhm.
if you're hit by somebody without insurance, right? Do you have medical payments coverage to help with the medical bills? Have health insurance. There are a lot of questions that we need to ask and to develop the right strategy in moving your case forward. And that's one of the advantages of contacting us, especially from the beginning, so that we can map out that strategy, make sure you're getting the right care with the right people at the right time, and making sure the insurance company is involved understand.
Yeah. So first things first, give us a call, right? We have a phone number, a toll-free phone number. If you need it, it's down at the bottom at the ticker. You should be able to see it. We do have one more question right over here, if you wanna go ahead and take that on as well.
Okay. He's gonna call me. He's gonna let me know is it a good thing or a bad thing. That's an interesting question, and I guess the easiest way I would answer that is to say that if you were a client at Ramos Law and you had a mediation, you're gonna be at that mediation with your counsel here at Ramos Law, and so I'm not real familiar with having a mediation without the client participating
Hmm.
because you are the client, and so I'll probably be asking some questions of my attorney, why I'm not being involved, why I'm not gonna be a participant, um, and that's the best advice I have, because at least here, we wouldn't conduct mediation without our client.
Right.
It's kinda hard to do that because the client is the decision maker, right? And so, I don't know if they can make decisions. Yeah.
That is interesting. Well, I'm glad you got to answer his question because I would have not known that question. And like I was saying, guys, we have an attorney in the house with us today. So if you have any legal questions, please feel free to ask them. And while we wait for some questions, I just want to shoot some out at you. So we talked about, why you wanted to go to law school, right? You're great at arguing. But can you maybe tell me, um, this is funny, I've been asking some of our attorneys this question, but if you could give a law, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's actually an easy one for
Yeah?
me. Uh, it would actually be changing the law, not necessarily getting rid of the law.
Okay.
One of the things that absolutely needs to change are the minimum insurance caps, uh, not only here in Colorado, but in the rest of the country. So, in the state of Colorado, the only thing you need to have when you're driving a car that essentially is a lethal weapon, right? You
Mhm.
can kill someone with a car. You can
Yep.
cause some serious injuries in it.
Mhm.
We see it every day, but you only have to carry $25,000 in car insurance. Okay, so if you're badly injured in a car accident and they cart you off to the hospital in an ambulance, and the hospital has to do a big workup, whatever that may be,
Mhm.
$25,000 is gone already, right? To say nothing about your lost wages, any additional medical care that you're going to need, any kind of funds for, pain and suffering, physical impairment, those types of things. And what ends up happening is the darn insurance companies are powerful, right? These are
Mhm.
multi-billion dollar corporations.
Mhm.
And what they do is they lobby the governments at the state level to say, "Hey, look, if you don't keep these minimums low, poor old State Farm is gonna go out of business, right? Give me a break."
Right.
It's ridiculous. And the other problem, of course, is that the car insurance companies don't educate the consumer. So, how many people watching actually know how much car insurance they have or how probably very few. We see it time and time again here in the firm.
Mhm.
People have been driving 50 plus years. They have no idea how much insurance coverage they have. They have
Wow.
no idea how it works. They think they bought a good product because the insurance company called it full coverage, only to find out they're sitting on a minimum policy and they have a claim with a value of, say, a half a million dollars,
Wow,
and they're going to see $25,000.
that's sad.
So that's what I would change.
Yeah. So can you tell people a little bit more about uninsured and underinsured motors? Because I didn't know anything about that. And the moment I learned a little bit more about it, I told my husband he needed to get it for us.
Well,
So,
nobody knows.
yeah.
Unless you know a lawyer or someone in the insurance industry, the
Mhm.
State Farms of the world aren't gonna tell you.
Yeah.
They don't want you to have these big insurance policies. They don't want you to be well insured. So it's pretty simple. Go buy as much uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage as you can afford, and it's not even that expensive. And what that coverage does is you get hit by a driver, it's not your fault. They either have no insurance or you're sitting on a policy that just isn't big enough for what they've done to you. Well, that's what the uninsured, underinsured policy will do. It will kick in and cover you if A, they don't have any coverage. And I'm from Metro Detroit. The city of Detroit, half those folks don't have insurance on their cars. Or if they have a minimum policy or they just don't have enough insurance, that underinsured policy is going to kick in and it's going to cover you. Now, people might ask the question, well, how much, right? So let's just say, let's throw out the number $100,000. That
Mhm.
sounds like a lot of money. It's really not. If you injure your spine and you need a spinal fusion surgery, that surgery alone is over $100,000. The money goes very, very, very quickly. If you have a head injury and you need your brain to do your job or to
Right.
just live, and all of a sudden now you can't earn income, that you were earning. What's $100,000 going to do for the rest of your life?
Right.
Nothing, right? So I encourage people, look at your policy. call us. We're happy to talk to you about your insurance policy. We don't
Mhm.
charge for that. We'll give you a quick education on what you need to really cover yourself, your friends, your family, your loved ones, those grandkids that might be running in the car with you,
Mm.
to make sure that if something bad happens and you didn't do a darn thing wrong, that you've got that coverage to protect yourself and your kids.
Mm. That's a great explanation right there. I think you couldn't have said it any better. Um,
Something I get a little passionate about.
yeah.
And when you see it year after year, time after time, where people come into this office with serious catastrophic injuries, or sometimes family members have been killed, and you have to look at this family member in the eye and say, "I'm sorry, your dead husband is worth $25,000 in our system." You just can't help but ask yourself this question: "What the hell is wrong with what we're doing here as a society and a culture where that is not only permitted, it's common?"
Right.
Because the average American has minimum insurance. We see that about 70 to 75, 80% of the time when there is insurance, it's a minimum policy.
Wow. Yeah, I heard Dr. Ramos mention that 70% of Colorado individuals have minimum
It's
insurance.
about, yeah, that's what about. And after that, the next policy up is 50 grand, which is probably another 10 to 15% of the market. Then they go to 100, maybe another 5 whatever percent of the market.
Mhm.
It's rare that we're going to see a policy above $100,000 unless you're involved with an accident with a commercial vehicle like a UPS truck or
Right,
something like that.
right. Wow. So I do wanna move on to another question, real quick. Caitlin Stowe, she said, "I was in a car accident and I'm nervous about treating due to medical bills and health insurance. What options do I have?"
That's a good question, and it's kind of a broad question, right? Because there's a lot of tools in the Ramos Law toolkit for making sure that our clients get access to great care and to make sure those bills are being paid. So the
Mhm,
first step, of course, for us to understand, well, how much car insurance is there? Because we wanna make sure that we're managing the case, your case, in light of however much money is available. So one of the tools we have in our toolkit for folks that don't have health insurance, for example, is what's called lien-based care, which means we get you great treaters, great doctors, great medical professionals, and that they get paid. Those bills get paid out of the settlement proceeds. If you have health insurance, outstanding. We work with plenty of providers that will provide access to care through your health insurance. Another part of your car insurance that some people know about is called medical payments coverage. Now, the minimum policy for medical payments coverage here in Colorado is 5,000. It's actually required, but you can opt out of it, which is kind of silly. But the good thing about MedPay is it does a few things. First of all, the driver that hits you, I know this is getting a little complicated, but the driver that hits you and that underinsured, uninsured stuff that I told you about, those policies don't get credit for the MedPay. So let's say you have a $5,000 med policy, 5,000 in medical bills. Take your MedPay, pay those bills off. Now your rates aren't gonna go up because you didn't cause the accident. That at-fault driver or that uninsured motorist policy you have, if there is no insurance with the at-fault driver, they owe you that $5,000 back. You can put that in your pocket.
mhm,
Okay, so that's a great thing to have. The other thing you can do with MedPay is you can pay for things that your health insurance might not cover, which is most of the things that actually help people get better, whether it's a massage, therapy, some acupuncture. Chiropractic care often isn't covered with your health insurance, and so those types of things can be paid for by MedPay as well. So there's a lot of options out there to get you care, but it requires a real thorough understanding of how the system works and and a very careful examination of all of the car insurance and health insurance policies.
wow, very intricate, and we did have another question. On Instagram, Sarah, she asked, "How will I deal with the property damage for my claim?"
That's a good question. So she's talking about, the damage to the car,
Mhm,
right? And so there's a couple different ways that can go about, and most often, you don't necessarily need an attorney to help you with that. Sometimes you do if the insurance company is jerking you around a little bit. But first step is, do you have that coverage on your own on your car insurance? Some people do, some people don't. If they do have it, I oftentimes will recommend that my client go through their own insurance company. Now, you're gonna pay your deductible in the short term, but they're gonna go and get that deductible back for you from the at-fault carrier.
mhm,
And one of the things that I like recommending going through your own insurance is because, at least in theory, they work for you. You're
Mhm.
paying them a premium. They should be giving you better. If you can't afford to pay the deductible or you don't have that coverage, then you're going to run that property damage claim through the at-fault carrier. There's usually a separate adjuster for that. They usually move pretty quickly. I would say most of the time we don't get a ton of complaints about that, but sometimes we do. Sometimes they're dragging their feet on getting your rental.
Mhm.
Again, if you're having a problem like that, give us a call at Ramos Law. We're happy to evaluate your situation and give you some darn good legal advice on what to do moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you've done a great job so far, and I do wanna mention we are probably gonna answer just one or 2 more questions here. I know this is a short live, but if you do wanna have Brian Calandra back, let us know in the comments, and if there's any other attorney you want to hear from here at Ramos Law, please let us know. You can always shoot us a message or, like I said, put in the comments. But real quick, let's see. We have Renee. They are saying, I have a friend who was recently in a motorcycle accident and almost lost his life. There was a box spring in the middle of the road on a highway, but we're not sure who dropped the box spring. Is there cameras on the highway?
Renee, I'm sorry to hear what's happened with your friend here. This was terrible. You need to call the office. And when you call in, the number is 303-733-6353. Ask the team to put some time on the calendar so we can talk. There's a lot of detail that might go into this. Are there cameras? Maybe, maybe not. Are there things that your friend can do to maybe make a claim? Maybe if he has uninsured motorist coverage on that motorcycle. But I'm happy to talk to you about it. Happy to talk to your friend about it. Get into some of the details so that we can give you the best possible advice. But a challenging situation to be sure. I hope your friend's doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did mention that they unfortunately did not have motorcycle insurance. So that is something that, obviously you can give us a call and see what we can do. But yeah, well, hopefully your friend is okay. And so with that last question, I think we're just gonna wrap it up here real quick. Um, like I said, I'm sorry it's a short one, but we can always have Brian Calandra back on. Just let us know if you want him. We'll have him back on regardless of if you guys want him on.
Call it the sequel.
Right, exactly. And then on the next one, we'll be able to spend some more time with you and answer some more questions from our viewers. But other than that, thank you everyone for joining. If you want to follow us on social media, please do. We have all our social medias that I'm about to pop up on the screen. We're on every single one under the sun. And so we have a podcast as well. You're listening to the live version right now, the Difference Makers podcast, but we do have one that is recorded and we do a video recording of it. So we do post it on YouTube, on Apple Music, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, and all the other major platforms. So please feel free to go follow us there. But other than that, thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate you being here. And thank you, Brian Calandra, for joining us.
No, thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. Much appreciated.
All right. Thank you. You all have a good one. Bye, guys.